Hi everyone, I'm today with Joel Lalgee and we'll be talking about recruitment social selling. Not so much about how do you create content on LinkedIn, etc., but how do you embed this into your outreach strategy and candidate nurturing strategy. And we also hint at the same application to getting new customers, getting new clients. So Joel, you do a lot of things. You're very present on LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter. You also have a podcast of your own, which is called Recruiting is No Joke. And you're also launching a newsletter soon. We'll add all those things to the podcast description. How would you describe yourself? What should we know about you?
Yeah, no, thanks, Robin, for having me on the show as well. Super excited to be here. Yeah, I think if I was to describe myself, I'd probably describe myself at this point as like somebody who's really just passionate about the recruitment industry. I've been coaching, I've done sales, I've done recruiting, but I think I'm just fascinated with the industry, how we work, and how we can get better. So if I was to nail it down to 3 words, I'd probably say like recruiter, sales, marketeer, LinkedIn guy. It's 5 words, but that's the basic description of who I am.
And yeah, one of these big changes that happened over the past few years, I don't know, maybe 10 years, was the rise of LinkedIn, especially LinkedIn content and content everywhere in the recruiting industry and in the space. So how did you see that change? Do you see that going away anytime soon? So what's your vision on this?
For me, like I kind of cut my teeth in the agency world. I worked with a really, really cool agency local to me. And, while I was there, when I started, we had 8 employees. When I left 5 years later, we had I think 90 employees. And then a year after I left, they doubled again in size. And I think they're at about 200 employees. So they had a ton of growth in a really short amount of time. So it was a really entrepreneurial environment that I was in. And so I was just always thinking about like, how can we do things better? Like there has to be better ways. And, I think we kind of defaulted like a lot of agencies do, it's like you go to LinkedIn Recruiter, you're in-mailing people, you're emailing people. Everything was just outreach. Like I just noticed that everything was outreach, and I was involved in our blog team a little bit. But nobody ever kind of gave me a foundation in marketing, and it was kind of like a thing that we knew we had to do, but it wasn't like, all right, part of our recruiting strategy is marketing. So I honestly just started to just scroll LinkedIn when I was bored. It was the only social media platform I was on. I'd actually given up and deleted all of my other social media accounts because I just thought it was a waste of time. And I wanted to be really focused on recruiting. But LinkedIn was the only platform that I hadn't deleted because obviously I was working on it. And then from time to time, I just scrolled the newsfeed. And I remember just starting to see videos. Like I just started to see lots of videos on my feed. And it was right around the time that LinkedIn had introduced videos, which I think was 2017. And one of my old recruiting colleagues, she was one of the first people that like started creating LinkedIn videos, and she just go wildly viral. Like it would be 2 million views on a LinkedIn video because they were pushing it because it was a new feature. And so that kind of got my attention, but then I just started seeing more and more people talk about it. And obviously like marketing people, I think really jumped on the idea of video because they're obviously ahead of the trend when it comes to anything social media. And they started to just hear and see these messages about if you create content, then people who view your content will be attracted to you. And obviously most people talk about that within the context of sales. And I think that's, it's acceptable, right? Like if you want to sell t-shirts, go viral. If you want to sell business to business, then create business to business content. But I started thinking like, well, if that's true for sales, like I don't understand why we couldn't do the same thing for recruiting. And so in 2019, that was when I just made the decision. I said, I'm going to try this out. I looked at the content that was out there on LinkedIn. It wasn't really anything that special. It was a lot of written content. There was some video stuff, but it wasn't like, Mr. Beast videos, which are like really high quality. It's LinkedIn videos. So I just thought, I could do this. So I'm just going to test if it worked. And, really ever since that point, I've been creating content. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've tried basically every type of content you can possibly think of. And since I started on LinkedIn, I also then expanded to other platforms like Twitter and TikTok. And now I'm obviously launching a newsletter. So I've really fallen in love with this idea of being able to scale like what you have to say just on like mass levels, and connect with people in kind of like that digital way, both for recruitment, for sales, and really just connecting with people, that you want to connect with.
And so you mentioned a few numbers. So I don't know if they're confidential, but the numbers that you gave me were 80 million impressions on LinkedIn last year. TikTok, you're about at 1 million a
Yeah.
day over the past 7 days, 34 million over the past 60 days. Twitter, about 500,000 per month. Yet, what's interesting is obviously not everyone will listen to that podcast, will reach that scale, and
Yeah.
not everyone should want to reach that scale because you get
Yeah.
benefits very early on, right? So I remember you mentioned a story from a friend who started posting just as a way to nurture people. Can you tell us a bit more about this and like maybe lower engagement ways to start doing social selling, and what is actually social selling in recruiting?
If anybody goes and clicks on my link tree, you're obviously going to see these huge numbers, right? Like 100,000 followers here, 100,000 followers there, millions of views. Okay, great. But fundamentally, you can do this at a smaller scale. So I'll use my friend that you mentioned as an example. So basically, he is what I would consider like chief people officer for a small IT consulting firm. And so, he's responsible for all of the hiring that takes place at this consulting firm. So he's obviously a close friend of mine. I think he was just intrigued with what I was doing and thought, I'm going to try something similar. Um, and so what he's done is he's just created content on YouTube, which he then posts on LinkedIn 3 times a week. Nothing, nothing goes viral. It's not this crazy. It's not like posting these things that are getting thousands of reactions. But what he's doing is he's having conversations with people at the company. He's talking about the company. He's just being himself basically, and just talking about like why he loves the company and why he's there. Um, Really, really, really basic. And I think a lot of people, if you see the video, you probably just think, okay, this isn't really anything like special or kind of unique, and pretty basic in fact. But what he's doing is he's reaching out to people like we all do on LinkedIn via email, and 90% of the time, these candidates, because he's trying to place developers and engineers, right, in a really tight geographical zone too. So just one city, he's trying to recruit these people because they're hybrid, so they can't be fully remote. He's reaching out to them, and then in his message, he's just basically saying, "Look, if this isn't the right fit for you, totally get it. Um, but I'd love to connect on LinkedIn. I'd love to just stay connected." So he connects with them, and obviously, he's got a personal message, so people are more inclined to connect with him. And then over the next 2 to 3 months, they're just seeing this steady flow of just content, right? And what he's told me is that the success rate of people just messaging him back, I think he said it's 50 to 60% of those candidates just reaching back out to him saying, "Hey, just something different. Like I'm totally, I've checked out a couple of your videos. It looks interesting. Let's have a conversation," which obviously then results in hires. And when he's following up with them, like if they don't reach back out to him, he's following up to them and saying, "Hey, look, I know a couple months ago I reached out to you. Would you be open for a conversation?" He's then getting that same type of response rate, 60 to 70%. So really extremely high response rates. And every single one of them, that converts, they always say, "Yeah, I saw a couple of your videos." And so if you go, I mean, if you were to check out this, we're talking about probably 10 or 11 reactions per video, like 10 or 11 likes, maybe a couple of comments. So just nothing, nothing extraordinary really. But this guy's brand new to tech recruiting. Like he's been in recruiting for 15 years, so it's not like a rookie recruiter, but never done like actual tech recruiting. And yeah, he's making hire. I think he's made 12 hires since he's been there. Most of them in tech. I think he had a marketing director as well. But I think that to me, it just shows the power of content, right? Like a lot of times we're trying to get more time with people. Content is a great way to get more time with people. Like anybody who is listening to this right now, I don't know how many people that is, but anyone who's listening to this, you're getting more of Joe Lalgee, more of Joe Lalgee. And you can hit pause, right? I'm not forcing this on you. It's not a message that I'm bombarding you with. It's your choice to listen to it. And I think that to me is why content's really powerful, because people can unfollow, they can just tune in, tune out when they want to. Um, but you're just getting that like one-on-one time that I just don't think you get from like traditional follow-up. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are this. This story is very enlightening because there is a lot to unpack, lots of learning. So number one is you don't have to reach millions of views for that strategy to be efficient. We're talking, well, you said 10, 11 likes, maybe a few comments. Low engagement videos, just low engagement content 3 times a week. That's enough. That's number one. Number two, that's something that I keep hearing as well is even when you do a lot of impressions, you cannot rely on this marketing to drive applicants. You'll still have to reach out to them. So what your friend is doing is basically is making these people aware of him. So that's the awareness stage in the marketing funnel. So that's the very earlier stage. But then he uses this awareness to increase his conversion in his outreach. So he's not just posting and waiting for people to come to him, but he's posting, exposing to those people, and then reaching out to them. That's a second learning. And the third learning is he does not only send email or like automated emails, but he sends LinkedIn invitations to connect. And LinkedIn invitations to connect are super powerful because that's basically adding the person to your curated newsletter that will only happen on LinkedIn, obviously. And you're not sure that every message will be delivered, but it's a very good way to keep on nurturing people over time. Because most recruiters rely on LinkedIn Recruiter, they tend not to do this. It's very hard to track who's connected to who on LinkedIn, so they tend not to send invitations to connect, but it's a very easy way to engage with people. So that's what I like this story. Not everybody has to be Joe Lalgee and reach and do 1 million on TikTok every day.
Look, if I could go back and kind of just do things again, I'd actually probably I wouldn't aim for like what I've done right now. I'd probably actually aim on a smaller scale to just be like fly under the radar, focused a lot more on like high value content that's going to convert with clients and candidates, right? And I think like what would really surprise people is if you created content for a year like my friend, and then you start to go out in your city or you go to an industry event, you'd still get noticed. Like at a certain point, the virality it kind of works against you. Like because you've also got to think my biggest problem right now, the biggest thing I've got to solve is I have too many people reaching out to me, like too many candidates reaching out, way too many. And, I got a message this afternoon from a guy who's just like, you mother, he's like, you didn't get back to me. What the going off on me because I didn't get back to him because he saw a video where he felt like I communicated, hey, I can help you. And I think that's, once you get to that level, it's not a helpful thing. Like I'm constantly battling, hey, I've got 100 comments on a video that I've got to get back to, because part of building community is people like they want to feel connected to the creator. So you've got to it can create a lot more work for you. And I think at the core, if you're a recruiter, you're probably wanting to use content to get a hold of more people, convert more candidates, convert more clients. And so I'm looking at other ways to monetize things like affiliate marketing and selling, almost like selling t-shirts for, selling like resume guides and things like that, because that's how you monetize a big following is you do that. If you're looking to convert candidates and clients, it's just high value touch points. Like you said, like I don't think it's realistic in recruiting in particular, because recruiting is so competitive. There's so many recruitment firms. There's literally millions of recruiters. We're all going after the same people. I don't think it's realistic in the short term to think that people are going to see some content and just reach out to you. Maybe they will. But if you do that over time, over years, you'll actually get to that point. But it's still going to have to involve it in your outbound, right? The only difference is when my friend goes to reach out to these developers and these engineers, the probability of them like having seen some of his content and getting more of a feel for him than any other recruiter that's DMing is so much higher. So it goes from being a couple of cold DMs to like an initial cold DM, and then he's just warming up over time. And then when he goes to reach out, they feel like they know him in a different way than the other 99 recruiters that are still wanting to reach the same developer.
Got it. And he would get replies at least, like people feel connected to him. So they would, even negative replies, it's easier to just reply to someone that you feel that you know. Same as I think when we talk on LinkedIn the first time, because we've been following each other for a while. So we felt connected already, even though we never talked. So that's also why the reply rates increases. And we do the same, obviously, in our outreach. And the reason why we're doing that podcast is like doing high quality content so that people get used to my voice as well and get used to me. And so when I talk to them on the phone, or when I talk to them on a call, or when I send them a DM on LinkedIn, they would reply, and that just makes it so much easier. I think we have painted a clear picture of where people need to go. They don't need to build millions of views, just need to create content. You mentioned something that was high value content. Yeah, fly under the radar, high value content. What's your advice for people that want to get started? Because usually what I see is that people are, there are three reasons why people wouldn't post. The first one is they're afraid. They're afraid of being judged, or they're afraid of what the company could say. Second, they don't have any idea. They don't know what to do. And I have no third, so that will just be those two for
though. Yeah, look, I think number one, to just like look at the fear aspect of it. Like anytime you do anything new, you're afraid, right? So like in recruiting, picking up the phone is a daunting thing, right? Maybe you're not picking up the phone anymore. Maybe you're emailing candidates, but you have your first phone screen. Think back to when you had your first phone screen with a candidate. I remember mine. I was in a hotel with a company, and I remember like my boss just being like, yeah, just pick up the phone and call this person. So I called them, and I had no idea what I was talking about. I didn't know what the role was, didn't know anything. So think back to that. That's how it is when you do something new. Okay. And that's okay. Like it's normal to be like that. But I think if it's just your own personal fear or your fear of what people think, number one, what I'll say is like when you first start anything, especially on social media, the probability of going viral is pretty low unless you get on TikTok and you just do some random rant about something. Like on LinkedIn, if you do a post about recruiting, probably not going to go viral. So you don't have to really worry about people judging you, maybe a couple people you know. But what you find is most people will be supportive because they kind of know that it takes a lot to put yourself out there. In terms of your company, I mean, that is a legitimate challenge. And I think this is where if you're a smaller company and you're particularly a leader at a smaller company, this can actually be a huge advantage over bigger companies, because bigger companies tend to really like police their marketing because they're so much more aware of their whole brand as a whole and their brand as a voice, and they don't want an individual outlier creating something different to the overall brand. At a smaller company, the brand voice is likely not as established in the marketplace. So you can actually use this as a way to empower your people, and it gives you a really great edge on bigger companies. So for example, like if you look at some of my posts, I will get more reactions than some corporations with millions of followers, because people connect with people. They're not connecting with like a brand voice. So I think now if you're somebody who's like, I really want to create content, but my company won't allow it, I think you're in a tough spot, right? You've got to do what's right. You've got to do the right thing. Maybe have the conversation with your leader and say, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. Maybe there's restrictions on what you can post. So you've got to be smart. Like you don't want to lose your job for posting a piece of content. And then in terms of like not knowing what to do, look, when I started posting content, I had no idea. I mean, if you look at some of my first LinkedIn posts, I remember I did one, and it was like, I called it emoji math. All right. And it was like, this is just it's really, really stupid. But, I remember putting like an emoji of like a brain, and I said plus time, which was like consistency. And then like, like an arm, that emoji with like the arm working out equals dollar signs. it was that bad because I didn't know what to post. But I think one of two things. Like one thing that you can do, which helped me a lot, is like I just spent a lot of time commenting on other people's posts. So what I would do, again, let's say you're recruiting life sciences. Okay, go find people who are creating content in life sciences and start commenting on those posts and posting from like a recruiting point of view or like things that you've heard from conversations that you've had. Adding to the conversation is really important. So again, this isn't a hack. All right, like I'm not suggesting go post great post on 100 influencers post because somebody might see it and follow you randomly. Always add to the conversation. Like if you can get good at adding to conversations on other people's content, then you've got a foundation for creating your own content. Because that's essentially all. When you're creating content, you're putting something out there in the hopes that people are going to engage and they're going to have something to say. So you literally, if you can think of it, instead of creating content, you're thinking of it creating conversations, then it becomes a lot easier, and it takes the pressure of being a thought leader. It takes the pressure of being profound or being this person. You're literally starting conversations within your space. So go follow those people who are creating content, start leaving comments, and also like just consume the information. Get used to how are people writing? What's the style? Is it conversational? Are they writing in third person? Like start to figure out like, okay, how are people writing on social media? And I'd probably honestly I'd do that for a month. And what you'll start to find is your comments will not only get reactions from the person who created the content, so maybe they'll respond, but also other people that are drawn to that content will start to respond. So it's possible on LinkedIn to leave a comment and get likes on your comments. And again, that's a good indicator. If you leave a comment and 10 people like it, you go, this is a point that people are interested in. So now I can expound on it. So I think actionable item for somebody, if you haven't done any creating content, spend 10 20 half an hour 10 20 minutes, half an hour, just following people who are creating content within your niche, within your focus, and then commenting on their content that's already there and starting these conversations, starting to get engaged, replying to comments, because essentially that's the foundation. A comment is content, right? Like it's not like an original piece of content that you've posted, but it's content that people can read and interact with, which is it's the same thing. And then I think once you get to that point, you go, okay, now I feel comfortable to write something, and then it's just figuring out. I break down content. If you want to do it simply, like when I was coaching recruiters, and shout out to Hoxo, which is a company I used to work with, they basically broke it down into 3 buckets. Like you have personal content, you have valuable content, and credible content. Personal is, well, we all know what personal content is. Then valuable is where you listening to the conversations you're having. So you're talking to a hiring manager and they go, what's the market like? What's the market like? Hey, we just had 3 candidates drop out of process and did this. And you hear that a couple times. You go, you know what, I'm gonna whatever advice you'd give to somebody offline, you start to give that online. And then the credibility piece is you talk about the business, you talk about your successes, maybe you talk about your struggles, but you show like, as a recruiter, great news, guys. This week we were able to help 2 candidates find roles in X space at these companies, and you start to build out that content that way. And then it's like your people who are you're connected with, they start to go, wow, okay, you're a person, because you can hear my kid in the background. You got your personal content, so you're human. Then you have your credible content, and you have the value add at the end. And that's a great strategy for being able to differentiate yourself from 99% of the recruiters that are out there. They're just DMing and emailing people.
What is the opposite advice that you'd give? Like, don't do this, empty bucket list. Don't do this. Things that you've done that you regret. I have a bunch on my mind. Things that we did on LinkedIn we regretted. What would you say?
It's really easy on social media just to chase the vanity, right? So to chase the likes, to chase the views. And I can give you the key right now. If you want to go viral, just copy and paste other viral posts, or like take images that you've seen on other social platforms, like a Simon Sinek quote that everybody's going to agree with, post that and say agree. That'll get you plenty of likes and views. The problem is they're not going to be focused on like your message. They're just focused on this message that's gone viral a million times. Now, that is actually what some people are being coached. So sometimes you'll see these posts and you think, why is this going viral? And it's like certain things just go viral every single time. It's like really basic messages go viral. So it's really easy to fall into that trap. Another one is like, I screenshot a lot of tweets, of like my own tweets, but you can take a tweet that's gone viral on Twitter, screenshot it and put it on LinkedIn, and it'll probably go viral again because it's like, people just appreciate the same things. But if you're just constantly doing that, you'll build up a following, but it's just going to be a random following, right? So I think it's putting it in perspective and going, okay, the goal here isn't to go viral. If you go viral, that is actually, I don't see that as a bad thing necessarily, but if you're gonna go viral, go viral for like what you want to be known for. Don't go viral for like just viral sake, because it's not actually that hard to go viral on the internet. Like I think people think it's this like mystical thing. It's not hard. Like cat videos go viral. Like it's not. But a cat video is not going to bring you, 3 clients that really want to work with you, right? Might get your name out there, which arguably you could go, well, that's awareness and I can use that. But, I think don't chase that. The other thing is just I think we need to change our mind when it comes to content. It's like a thing like that we're going to do and we're going to end at a point. Like I am absolutely convinced that social media, digital, whether it's video, written content, newsletters, YouTube, whatever it is, it's not going away. Like it's just not going away. Like people are consuming more and more and more and more. And so I think there's this, like, I've seen it time and time again, particularly when I was coaching recruiters. People they'll go hard for like 2 weeks and they get super excited, and then it just drops down to the priority list. And I'm just telling you right now, like we need to make it a priority. And what I mean by a priority is you dedicate time to it, right? And you go, okay, this is a part of my business development. This is a part of my candidate outreach. Okay, this is just as important as sending the 10 emails or making the 10 more phone calls. This is just as important, because I promise you this, as the workforce retire, like the older workforce retires and there's younger people coming in, things like podcasts and videos, like everything's going to equalize. Like right now we have a lot of influencers with millions and millions of followers, but like it's just going to equalize, and it's going to be less about how many followers you have, and it's really just going to be like, hey, can I connect to the 5, 10, 15,000 candidates that are within my niche? And then you start to look and go, I don't need a million followers. I need that 15,000 people. That's all I'm interested about. So I think it's prioritize it, schedule, have vision for this stuff, and don't go, oh man, it'd be great. Because I used to do this. I'd be like, yeah, I can't wait till I get 100,000 followers. Then I can kind of stop. I've made it. But my mind's changed. Now I'm just like, this is something I will do until I retire, because it's where everything's going. And I'm sure, and I predict that social media platforms are going to get away from followers and likes and all of that sort of stuff. I think they tested it, but I think we're going to see platforms arise. Like I think they're already out there, where it's like, I think Post is like a good example, where it's like the emphasis isn't on likes and follows. It's just more on like the actual content. So I think if that's your mindset, it takes the pressure off, right? You don't need it to get these followers tomorrow, but what you need to do tomorrow is you need to get the consistency and just change your mindset with it and go, yeah, I'm going to commit to posting 3 times a week. I'm gonna get better at writing. I'm gonna get better at this video communication. And just, I think the last piece is, with that consistency, is just not to get into the comparison game straight away, and not to get disappointed. And like, I hear this a lot, like, well, what's the ROI? When's the ROI? Like, just get that type of terminology out. It's like, you would never tell me after 2 weeks of cold calling that, oh, well, that's a waste, never do it again, right? It's like, maybe now you would, because a lot of people don't respond, but like, it's that same idea. Like, you wouldn't tell somebody in recruiting, oh, you didn't place somebody in your first 4 months, well, you should just quit. You just know it. It's a long game, right? And it's the same with content as well.
So start by commenting, stop thinking about content and start thinking about conversations. And yeah, we all have those conversations that we have with our coworkers, candidates, friends, people that we coach. It's very easy, and some things that seem obvious to us are not necessarily to the audience. And I see sometimes I fall in that trap myself. I try to post too elaborate things, while the most basic or what I believe are basic things are not so much for people that are not in the space or not talking to as many people as I am. So yeah, start low and
Well, here's a great example of that. People think recruiters are there to help them find a job. Okay, it's this fundamental like flaw in recruitment marketing where people honestly believe the function of a recruiter is to help them find a job. Where we all know that can be a part of our job, but it's determined on whether or not you're a fit for anything I'm recruiting on. So if I'm only recruiting software engineers and you come to me and you're like, I'm a truck driver, can you help me find a job? No, I can't. But a software engineer comes to you, hey, can you help me find a job? Yeah, I can help you find one of my jobs. I can help you with the interview process for one of my jobs. But people think that. So like even something, I've been posting basic stuff like this, and I get job seekers who are like, oh, God, that's helped so much. It's helped me realize why no recruiters are responding to me. Great. You know, it's something so basic. We're like, what the heck? You didn't know that? No, people don't know that. Again, same with like resumes and things like that. And I think when you're thinking with like clients, right? Who are your clients? Okay, a lot of your clients, the people who let you in are TA and HR, but you end up dealing with the hiring managers. The hiring managers are at the same level as the job seekers. They don't get this stuff. They don't understand. They're not sitting around going, oh yeah, I've got to get the funnel up. I've got to get, oh, what about employer branding? Interesting. They're thinking about like the product that they're building. They're not thinking about recruiting and hiring is like something they have to do, and they know that like, yeah, we need to add to the team, but they don't know the strategy behind it. And I think sometimes we assume we're not good enough with like data and telling stories and like coming to those conversations in like a way where we're winning them over, like, hey, we've got a clear strategy, this is how we're doing it. um, but the reality is they don't have a clue. That's why like sometimes I'll post memes about hiring managers and people are like, oh, well, if a hiring manager saw that, they probably would, you know, what do they think? And I'm like, a lot of times they go, wow, I didn't think that was a problem. Yeah, it is actually. I've done that before. And it's like they're not aware because, again, it's like it's not their part. Like a hiring manager's priority is the rest of their job. And it's like, yeah, we know we got to recruit this, but they're also doing other stuff. And I think a lot of times recruiters, it's like we just downplay these really basic things. You know, we're not thinking at that level, and then you start to see people's resumes and you think, oh wow, like this is terrible. Like who told you this? Like, well, I didn't know what I had no idea how we're doing because no one's training people on this stuff, right? um so
mm,
and I think a lot of times we think, honestly, it's like we just think this stuff is so basic, and it is to us. And also like recruiting community can be a little bit judgmental of other recruiters, and you know, but even really basic stuff it can be like profound to job seekers and hiring managers. It really can. So
yeah, especially if you're writing for job seekers, for candidates. You're doing this as a job. They're not. They'll change jobs 10 times in their lives, and you'll hire 10 people in a year or more. So yeah, you get much more exposure to the market and the best practices. All right.
exactly, that's where like the credibility piece comes in, like with candidates, and like how do you give value to candidates? Well, you know, if you're seeing a mistake on every single developer you deal with on their resume, create some content around that. You know, like if you're seeing in common interview mistakes that are happening, say something. If you're seeing a breakdown in your process over and over, you know, maybe post about it. Now, I think internal, you've got to be internal. I get like the hesitation because obviously like you're working with the hiring managers, but I think like if when people see people posting things on social media and it's like people are reacting well to it, it does kind of create its own credibility as well. And it's like there's something to be said when like one of my friends, Liam, who he was part of like the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program. He's part of a recruiting team at a software company, and they hired him specifically for like the recruitment marketing and the strategy because of his LinkedIn presence. So I think if you can build a presence on social media as well, you know, to where you're posting consistently, even if you're not getting the reactions, you start to build that relationship even with your internal hiring managers that you're working with because they see you more, you know, and they're like, oh, saw that post you did the other day about X, Y, and Z. I think that's a great idea. So there's value from all angles of doing this, and I'd encourage anybody. Like a lot of times you think, oh, my thoughts are worthless. Nobody wants to hear me. It doesn't mean that it's not valuable. Like even if one or two, three, four people get value out of it, it's that compounded over a year. You're talking still 1,000 people that are impacted, that's a lot of people in my opinion, anyway.
Agreed. Thanks a lot, Joel, for this quick masterclass on recruitment social selling. So not so much about building content, but also building content to nurture people, then re-engage them. Final question: if we want to listen to Recruiting is No Joke, so your podcast, what episode would you recommend?
All right, so the episode I actually just did right before this podcast. So it's with someone called Erin Peterson. She heads up talent at a VC called a PE firm called Great Hill Partners, I think is called. But highly recommend listening to that. Like she just broke down a ton of really great strategies when it comes to just dealing with hiring managers, how to approach hiring managers with data, how to start to think about the recruitment process as like what we're talking about, like the top of funnel all the way down to bringing people in. So definitely would check out that episode.
But it's not live yet, right? So there will be episode 21.
Yeah, episode 21, but they can just go. I feature, basically I stream my podcast on LinkedIn first. So the episode will be on this. Just go to my LinkedIn profile and you'll see it'll be on the featured section. I feature all the podcast episodes on there. And then that release date, we're probably looking at early March. I'll release that. So definitely check that episode out. And then really, I would browse through some of those different episodes because it really depends on like, there's a lot of like head of TAs and directors of talent at startups at different stages. And then there's some like, I guess, more seasoned TA professionals who are like running massive, like Kraft Heinz, JLL, like they're responsible for 30, 40, 50,000 hires a year. So I think there's a nice mix on the podcast. So I definitely just, check out any of those episodes. Yeah.
Got it. And I'll also add the link to all those links that you mentioned. So your podcast, your newsletter that is to come, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, everything. So thanks a lot, Joel. And we'll keep an eye out for you.
Sweet, Robin. Appreciate it. Great chatting and looking forward to doing a collaboration again soon.